Secrets. It seems each family has at least a few, from the inconsequential to those you might see on a tabloid talk show. But sometimes the family secret is so substantial it blurs the boundaries of reality and creates a world all its own. I'm DreyOfTheDead, and it's time to feed your head. Pauline Dakin and her little brother Ted always suspected their family was somewhat off. They couldn't put their finger on it, but would occasionally ask each other, "What do you think is wrong with our family? Why are we so weird?" During Pauline's 5th year, just before school started, her parents' marriage came to a close. Her father, Warren, a successful businessman, had developed a drinking problem with abusive tendencies towards the family, prompting their separation. During the summer of 1974, Pauline's mom packed up their Volkswagen camper van and took the kids on a vacation to Winnipeg, over 1,000 miles away from their Vancouver home. It was there, over a cup of hot cocoa, that she informed them they were never going back. And though the kids occasionally asked why, Ruth never provided an explanation. 4 years later, the family moved again to New Brunswick. By her 11th year, Pauline had attended 6 different schools and couldn't shake the feeling that something ominous was at play. Ruth warned her children to never speak of where they lived or what they were doing, always with the same caveat of, "I'll tell you when you're older." The family finally put down roots in their East Coast Canadian home. During this time, Pauline couldn't help but notice the presence of a familiar face, Reverend Stan Sears. Her mother had met Stan at a support group for families of alcoholics shortly before leaving Warren, and each time their family moved, it seemed Stan's family followed suit. Over the years, Ted and Pauline took note of some very unusual behavior from their mom, like when they came home to find their mother purging all of the food in the fridge under the premise that it had gone bad, or when she randomly took them to a mountain cabin in the middle of the school week to go hiking and stay the night, or when the kids were made to skip school and go bowling. And in one bizarre incident, they came home from school only to be rushed through the house to the bathtub to scrub their feet and wear plastic bags over their socks for the rest of the day. By 1998, 23-year-old Pauline had graduated from university and began work at a local newspaper. It was there that she received a curious call from her mother, asking that they meet at a motel hallway to finally discuss years of strange occurrences. Upon arrival, Ruth presented her daughter with an empty envelope and a note that read, "Don't say anything. Take your jewelry off, put it in the envelope." Pauline complied and was led to a room where Stan awaited them. There, Stan and Ruth informed Pauline that they had been on the run from the mafia for the past 16 years, that her jewelry may be bugged, and that her father, Warren, worked for an organized crime syndicate. As Stan explained, it all started when he became a counselor for a kingpin who wanted to leave his life of crime, but was assassinated shortly thereafter. Both Stan's involvement with the kingpin and Ruth's relationship with Warren resulted in making them both targets of the mafia. In addition, Stan, Ruth, Pauline, and Ted were each being followed by government-sanctioned task force agents, who had successfully intervened to keep them from attempted kidnap, poisoning, such as through food or carpet, and sudden death throughout the years. Pauline spent the weekend learning all she could from Stan and Ruth. Stan described in great detail shadow communities where people like them could go into protective custody, places known as the Weird World. Stan explained that he was already living in one of these deep wilderness communities and working alongside agents there. Unfortunately, his wife was unwilling to go inside with him. Ruth, however, was tired of running and craved the safety and security these communities could provide. To make matters even more interesting, they confessed that they had been in love for years and that this was finally their chance to be together. Understandably, this was a lot for Pauline to take in. On one hand, her work as a journalist required her to question everything. On the other hand, it provided reasoning to the madness that had been her life for the past 18 years, and comfort in the knowledge that her family wasn't simply crazy. When it came time for her to leave, Stan provided Pauline with a car transmitter that allowed agents to track her and keep her safe, and a transistor radio she was instructed only to use if her life was in imminent danger. Equipped with this knowledge, Pauline found herself becoming more and more fearful each day. With a growing paranoia, she often scanned her environment for anyone who might be following her. She planned escape routes in her own home, assumed her telephone line was bugged, and stopped eating at restaurants for fear of being poisoned. Over time, Stan and Ruth informed her that many of the people she had known as a child had been involved with organized crime and had since been arrested or killed and replaced with doubles, some by the mafia and some by the good guys. Those who dedicated their lives to being doubles underwent extensive facial reconstruction and meticulously studied home movies in order to perfectly emulate those they had replaced. When Ted got married in 1990, the family came face to face with a few of the doubles, two of whom were disguised as Pauline's own father and aunt. During the wedding, even Ruth became upset at the sight of her own sister. "But look at her toes," she whispered to Pauline. "Those are exactly Penny's toes. How could you make someone's toes look like that?" When Pauline questioned how her father's double might have the same spot over his iris, Stan cited contact lenses and prosthetics. Ruth and Pauline often received letters from other people on the inside, including Pauline's father and godfather, who were being held in a top-security prison, according to Stan. Despite her occasional doubts, Pauline was assured that the information came from the two people she trusted most. For someone to fabricate so many details seemed like an unrealistic amount of effort with little payoff. In the midst of it all, she started to feel that so much of her life was trivial in contrast with this new reality and the ever-present threat of danger. On top of this, being sworn to secrecy had put a strain on her relationship. As a result, she quit her job, left her boyfriend, and sold her house to go inside with her mother. Stan eased her mind with talk of good people and available work within the community. He was building a cottage for Ruth and could build her one too. Together, they looked at carpet samples and photos of her future horse. Pauline moved to Nova Scotia with her mother and awaited word on when it was safe to go inside. There had been reported threats against family members, and disappearing again could mean danger for those involved. During that time, Pauline met a man named Kevin, and the two eventually married. Neither her father or double were invited to the wedding, so Stan gave Pauline away at the altar. Kevin was inevitably made aware of the dark secret and agreed to go inside with the rest of the family. But the time, it seemed, was never right. By 1993, after 5 years of laying low and looking over her shoulder, Pauline's patience and trust had worn thin and she could no longer ignore her doubts. She decided she needed to know for sure. While Stan was visiting her mother, Pauline called her, frantically stating that someone had broken into her home. "What should I do?" she implored. Ruth would need to consult with Stan and call her back. Throughout the years, Stan had made it clear to the women that they should never contact authorities. The police, he said, might be compromised by the mafia. Stan claimed to be their sole point of contact with those who would keep them safe, as he received classified information through his beeper and a device implanted in his wallet. Ruth returned her call and asked her to come to the house immediately. Terrified of what was to come, Pauline was finally prepared to receive the hard truth. When she arrived, Ruth and Stan told her that two men had been taken in by agents earlier that day, just down the street from her home. They had been following her and had photographs of her in their possession. It was at this moment that Pauline realized everything she had been told for the last 5 years was a lie. The claims of mafia involvement, the doubles, the letters, the shadow community she'd given up her life for, and the perpetual fear that led her to sever countless relationships. Stunned and shattered, it took her a full week before she was able to confront her mother. Ruth's response was one of shock and dismay, not at the truth about Stan, but at the danger Pauline faced by not believing. Upon telling Stan that she had made up the break-in story, he assured her that there had been some mistake and a thorough investigation would soon follow. Pauline described, "My memory of that night is how sad he was. I was no longer one of them." She spent the next few months attempting to prove to her mother that Stan had manipulated them, but to no avail. Simultaneously enraged and defeated, she sought answers from a psychiatrist. Stan seemed rational in all other aspects of his life. He did not appear to have psychosis. He was professional and well-spoken. How could a man, a pillar of the community, so clearly respected by his peers, do this to a family? Pauline's psychiatrist suggested the possibility of folie à deux, or madness of two, a shared delusion generally transmitted from one dominant personality to a less dominant personality. One day, she came across an article on delusional disorder and contacted the author, a Harvard psychiatrist, to learn more. He was interested in her story, and together they determined that Stan exhibited textbook symptoms of the disorder. Though this realization did not repair the damage that he had done, it helped Pauline come to terms with her past. She went on to reconnect with her father, now suffering from emphysema and an alcohol relapse. As for her mother, their relationship never fully recovered. Ruth developed cancer and spent the last 9 months of her life living with Pauline. Even after the passing of Stan in 2005 and the discontinuation of the letters and mafia updates, Ruth's dedicated conviction never wavered. Shortly before her death in 2010, she warned Pauline to be careful, but added, "Oh, Polly, if you don't believe this, how you must have hated me." On the contrary, as angry as she was, Pauline was ultimately left with a deep sadness for her mom, the constant fear she lived under, needlessly manufactured by the person she loved, the difficulties she endured at the hands of a delusional man, and a sense of mourning for a childhood stolen. If you enjoyed this strange but true tale, check out our previous episode here on YouTube, and more Feed Your Head mini episodes on TikTok. If you'd like to know more about Pauline's story, check out her book Run, Hide, Repeat, a memoir of a fugitive child. And if you're interested in similar stories, I highly recommend viewing Oki's mind-blowing 5-part series on the cult of Thierry. It is a wild ride. If you don't want to miss future episodes, which air every 2 weeks, be sure to subscribe and consider becoming a Patreon supporter where you can access exclusive behind-the-scenes content and take part in my creative process. As always, thank you so much for watching. Be well and stay strange.